Vigor is a brand new game by Bohemia Interactive releasing on Xbox One. I did a video on it around a year ago when it was only available on the Xbox preview program, and I'm glad to say that it's improved and evolved a lot since then, but how does it actually stack up? Well, let's take a look. Before we dig in, some important facts. This video is sponsored by Bohemia Interactive. Vigor is free to play and there's a link that you can click on below in the description for more information. Also, I'll be dropping some Outlander packs and starter pack codes in the comments below. So then, let's set the tone. Vigor takes place in a post-apocalyptic Norway in 1991. The nuclear war is over and as a result, Europe is devastated. Somehow, Norway has become the last stand. The idea is that you play as an Outlander, scrounging for materials to survive. Head out into the world, loot, shoot and survive, while at the same time finding enough materials to build your shelter. The punchline is that humanity has fallen, but you shall rise. On first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this game has a very DayZ feel to it, and it absolutely does in a lot of ways. It feels a bit old school in that respect, and that's very unsurprising considering it's being developed by Bohemia, who also partook in development of DayZ. It's going to be very hard to avoid these comparisons, especially when you make a game with a similar premise. However, they are different games, and although Bohemia Interactive is responsible for both, we have to remember that there are multiple development teams within any one studio, and you could argue that Vigor is more akin to a game like Escape from Tarkov. The basic idea of Vigor is that it's a loot and shoot game. You get in and you get out with any loot that you find. So when you first load up the game, you're taught the ropes with a tutorial. It teaches you the basics of looting and using your map to get to areas, as well as airdrops coming in, which can give you some of the better quality loot. Once this is completed, you then get access to your shelter, and inside your shelter you can do quite a few things, including upgrading it. And you can upgrade various areas that not only change how it looks visually, but also give you gameplay benefits when you're out in the wild. As well as that, you can craft weapons, ammo, and change up the way that your character looks. If you fancy it, you can even try to complete a Rubik's Cube. I'm not sure why this guy has kept a Rubik's Cube when Europe has been decimated, but look, we can't judge the guy. We all need things to pass the time. And when you're upgrading your shelter, there is a completion time, so you may want to head back out and do some missions to pass that time. Each upgrade may need certain materials too, such as nails for example, and to get those you need to loot them. Once you have access to your shelter, you can then hop into an encounter, and in the full release, Vigor has got quite a few to choose from. Now, I'm about to butcher the pronunciation of a few different maps, but here we go. Fiskefabrik, Dverg Forest, Fjellkanten, Grondheim Valley, Battery Draug and Victorsen Station. You can tell my Norwegian isn't very good, but what's good about these encounters, or outlands as they're called, is that each one has a different feel to it, and every time you go in, the weather may be slightly different to mix things up too. In one outland you might be going over the grassy hills of Fjellkanten, or in another, the fog of Battery Draug. There is a good amount of variation here, and you can also do these encounters with friends if you prefer, but solo I think works well. Once you're out in the wild, you have to spend time looting buildings, vehicles and potentially airdrops. And airdrops come in after a certain amount of time and tend to have good loot or weapons in them. The idea in Vigor is that you must get all the loot you dare from each encounter and then get out alive while you can. If you want to keep the things that you've looted, then you have to reach an exit point, and these are dotted around the map. Get to that point and a small countdown will start, and if you successfully complete it, you'll be evacuated back to your shelter. When you're just looting items normally, you can stay under the radar quite well, if that's how you want to play. And if you run into other Outlanders, then you can take them out and grab the loot that they've acquired. Be wary though, if you do manage to get one of the airdrops, then your position periodically becomes revealed to other Outlanders, just to make it a bit more risky. And to add another element of pressure into the mix, if you're out there long enough, radiation will start moving into the level. It's a bit like a circle in a BR game. If you get caught in that, you're going to have a bad time. So there is an extra rush element there just to get the blood pumping. The idea is that you take items such as weapons, ammo, bandages into any outland with you, but it's a risk-reward scenario because if you die, you lose it. However, if you don't take one of the better weapons and you come across other players who are better equipped, you will survive. That's the balance. Interestingly though, there is also a way that you can guarantee your loot isn't lost, and this is an in-game currency called crowns. These crowns can be used when in a lobby to buy social boosters, and this works in a few different ways. For 30 crowns you can increase the quality of loot in that particular game. For 45 you can give better loot in a crate, and for 60 you can have insurance to guarantee your players' items. The idea here is that the more players in a lobby that offer up some of these crowns for loot, the better the loot will become. You can gain a small amount of crowns from airdrops when you open them up after you return to your shelter, or you can buy them with real money. Interestingly, on the lobby screen you can also highlight players to see what weapons they have or don't, as the case may be. When you load up into a game, it's up to you what you want to take in with you. Maybe you don't want to take anything in the hope that you could just loot some materials and get out of there fast with no risk. Players will absolutely do that. Of course, if you run into another player who has a gun, then you're going to have problems. The game isn't without its issues though. I think climbing and mantling seems to be a bit janky since the last time I played it. Often it works as intended, but there are obstacles that you think you can vault over, but the game seemingly either doesn't let you or it takes a little while to register. And there also seem to be a couple of delayed shots hitting enemies. Maybe that was just a couple of server issues that I was having. So there's maybe some teething issues that need to be looked at here. The game has just released. One thing that I do really love about the game though is the map design. I think it's brilliant. There were times when I looked at this and took a step back and the vistas were gorgeous. I love the environmental detail here. At the end of the day though, visuals don't make a great game and gameplay does. And that moves us on nicely to longevity. The core concept of the game is to go out into the wild and collect resources. And you've got 6 areas that you can travel to which are quite varied. And of course you've got the shelter upgrades too. The further into your shelter upgrades you get, the longer each upgrade takes. And they can take quite a long time. So I suppose that you have to hope the game holds itself up in terms of replayability when it comes to the actual gunfights that you're engaging in. The gunplay itself I think is quite good, and so I think the game definitely offers up a different experience than a lot of other games out there on Xbox at the moment. And the game does kind of have this tension to it, and it puts you on edge because if you know that if you die, you'll lose everything that you've taken in. And as far as I'm aware, console, Xbox doesn't really have a game like this at the moment, so it could be that Vigor builds up a nice audience for itself. We'll have to see how people react to it. I would love to see more areas added in the future, and also maybe more emphasis on playing with friends and the different ways in which you're able to team up with people. So far, whilst I've briefly played of Vigor, I've enjoyed it, and it's definitely improved a lot since the last time I picked it up a year ago. With this being a free-to-play game, I can see a lot of players picking it up because it is a different, slower paced experience compared to most other console games out there. But you know what, see for yourself, try it out and let me know what you think. Once again, there is a link in the description below if you want to check it out, and the game is free to play. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, a dislike if you didn't, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.